Breaking news, Grandmaster Raunak Sadhwani checkmated Anish Giri yesterday in the Pro Chess League match, and he was representing team Armenia Eagles, and he went on to win against Anish Giri with the black pieces yesterday. So that is our game of the day today, and I'm going to cover it. Let's dive straight into the game. Anish Giri, being white, played knight f3. So this move is a clever move order trick to know the intentions of the opponent. If black is preparing French or Sicilian or some sort of d4 response. For example, if you go knight f6 and g6, you might be intending to go Grunfeld or King's Indian. So things like that. So this is a move to know the intentions of the opponent. And after knight f3, he played knight f6. And after c4, we get a pure English. There's also a possibility for white to play a pure Reti kind of a move order. And in this position, Anish Giri plays c4, so we get an English. After knight c3, knight c6, e3, he is hinting at a possible d4 break, which you will see happen. After e3, he plays e5, bishop e2, bishop e7, d4, a break in the center. After ed4, ed4, Raunak plays d5. And after bishop e3, he goes for cd4, knight d4, knight d4, bishop d4. And now we reach a critical position after dc4 and bishop into c4. You can see that the pawn structure is same. When you have pawn structures which are same in nature, like this, and also when they are almost similar, the side having active pieces, in comparison, you see the side having active pieces will stand better. In this position, it is white who is having better placed pieces, and I think white is slightly better. He enjoys a stable edge in this position. But let's see how Raunak plays and neutralizes this pressure. And after castles, he goes for castles, and bishop g4, Anish Giri plays queen d3. Another point to remember, you can see that Anish has connected his rooks already. It's generally a good idea to connect rooks before move 14, and he has done that here. And after queen d3, you know, the thing about rooks is sometimes a lot of players have this question, where to place the rook, and if you decide on a square, the next question is which rook to place. So there's a funny joke about it. There's a quote by Pano about rooks. Check that out. Now after queen d3, Raunak Sadhwani plays a6. I would have played rook c8 to keep an eye on the bishop, but a6 is not a mistake. But there is a certain drawback associated to it, that the b6 square is slightly weakened. But okay, it's not so dangerous at the moment. Anish plays h3, and after bishop h5, he plays queen e3. Now you can see that this bishop on h5 is controlling the square d1, that ensures that there is no rook f d1 or rook a d1. But at the same time, Anish is also intending to play bishop b6 to do the same, to get the control of the d8 square. But after queen e3, Raunak realizes that he can get a tempo and play rook e8 to keep an eye on the queen. So the queen has to run again. So he unpins himself with queen f4, and then realizing that the c4 bishop is hanging, Raunak uses another tempo and plays rook c8, and now the bishop has to move. And after bishop b3, I think bishop d6, bishop e5 was a good maneuver. After queen h4 to exchange this bishop, to some extent this would have probably neutralized some pressure. But in the game, Raunak went straight away with queen d6 to offer the exchange of queens. Now in my opinion, after the exchange of queens, I think white still stands better, but practically getting rid of queens in a high pressure games in situations like this, I think is a good choice. So let's go ahead with the game. After queen d6, bishop d6, Anish played rook fe1, challenging the rook, and then Raunak played king f8. And then here, I think rook into e8, g4, bishop g6, and rook d1 was a good way to go forward, because there is slight pressure. The b7 is slightly in need of a support, because after this knight goes away from f6, possible bd5, and then if the pawn moves to b5, bb7 kind of ideas could come. But he played rook ac1, allowing black an extra move. What I mean is, now the bishop can come to f4 and attack this rook again, and this rook has no good square. So Anish played rook takes e8, and now the rook has to go back to a1. And now bishop c5 is a possible threat to push this king away. So he played bishop d6, just covering that square. And then after g4, bishop g6, he gets his rook to d1. Remember what I just said about the d1 square? Just when the bishop is out, the rook is now able to occupy the d line. And now after rook d1, there was a nice moment. I thought about this position and I felt that if bishop c7, it's a choice which is difficult to make. If you play bishop c7, I mean practically we would be worried about the rook coming to the 7th rank, right? For example, after bishop check, king g8, in order for this rook to come to 7th rank, we have to get rid of this f6 knight. So you push this pawn, and after knight h5 you play rook d7. But the story doesn't end here, because after rook d7, black manages to create sufficient play based on this pawn on g5 after bishop f4. So it's not really clear if white is clearly better, but white has some chances. But after rook d1, Raunak went bishop e7. He felt that it would be easy to defend if the bishop is near the king. Then after bishop e7, Anish went in full force with f4. He wants to trap the bishop. This is an immediate threat and this has to be answered, and he answers it dynamically with h5. And after h5, white plays f5 and bishop h7. I think this is a very critical moment, because what white does determines how the game follows. Here, knight d5 is an interesting choice, because you offer to exchange and get rid of this defender, and also hinting at a possible attack on b7. For example, after knight d5, bishop d5, the pawn on b7 is attacked. Now black can set a cool trap here by playing rook d8, saying no, you cannot take bishop into b7. I hope you have figured out why bishop into b7 is not possible. It's because of rook takes d4 followed by bishop c5. So coming back to the trap, after rook d8, the bishop has to move. So bishop b6 is a possibility. This is one way of defending against the threat. Or instead of bishop b7, let's say after bishop d5, rook d8, if white plays bishop c3, then black can hope to play bishop g8. The idea is that if this pawn is taken with the g takes h5, then black can play f6 and activate his bishop. And then after bishop b3, you capture this rook and then you capture this pawn. It's an equal position, but just I like the funny way how black activates his bishop to go bishop h7 and then bishop g8. So yeah, knight d5 was an interesting move which would have forced black to be very tenacious. But in the game, Anish went for g5, which is a very normal looking move, obvious choice. When it comes in a format where the time is very short, this is the move you would like to make. But after knight d7, the problem is that both the pawns are attacked by two bishops. This bishop is attacking f5, this bishop is attacking g5, and no magic can help you defend both the pawns at once. So he decided to force the matters with g6. And now Raunak played fg6. And then here I think in this position, white can go knight to d5, which is an interesting possibility. The idea being that if you take g takes f5, then the whole king side looks slightly shaky. So this would have been a very good practical choice to create more threats. And after bishop f6, knight f6 is not possible because of bishop c5 check. So black would have been forced to take gf6, and the position looks slightly shaky for black, though objectively the position is equal. But this would have been a very good practical try for Anish. But he went for bishop g7, and after king takes g7, Anish played rook takes d7, and you see there is a pin. And what Raunak does, immediately runs away and unpins the position. The bishop is now no longer under a pin, which means the bishop is now free. And so after king h6, fg6, he plays an intermediate move to activate his bishop. Remember that he wants to move his rook, but this rook has to defend this bishop. So he takes away that kind of a burden and develops the bishop to c5, so that now that the rook can move freely. After king g2, bishop into g6 was played, and after rook takes b7, Raunak finds the drawback. What is the drawback of the rook going to b7? Now our rook could come to the d line, and the heaven for the rook. He is the 7th rank. So after rook c7, he plays rook d2 check, and after king f3, rook f2 check, king g3, he plays bishop to e3. The position is still equal, and you will see how all it takes is just one move to change everything in chess. It's cruel, I know, but that is how it is. You make 40 good moves, but if you make one wrong move, then the game can change suddenly. Now after bishop e3, knight d5, bishop d4, rook c6. Here Raunak found a nice move. He played h4 check. Now the problem is that after h4 check, king g4, black has to take, white has to take a draw with rook g2, king f3, rook f2, king g4. So white has to actually accept the draw, because after rook g2 check, you cannot really take the pawn. I hope you see why. You can see the evaluation bar also going down. It's because of a mate on f2. So this was the point. So white had to take a draw here, but white took the pawn and lost. So this was the turning point. After bishop king into h4, Raunak found a very nice move to restrict white's king. He played rook g2, and he's renaming a threat. Now the bishop is coming to f2, and there's only one move to prevent it. White has to give up the exchange with rook f6, and after bishop f6, knight f6, the game can go long, but I think black is better. He has he has a rook against a minor piece. But in this position, Anish played knight f6, and this is how Raunak was able to checkmate Anish Giri with bishop f2. So I felt that both the players played quite a lot of good moves in the entire game, a high quality game, and just in the end, in the time scramble, I think inaccuracies led to Raunak's win. But Raunak was also very good with defending the position, especially after the queens got exchanged. He played some accurate moves, defended the position, and whenever he got his chance, he took it. Especially I like the way he gave bishop c5 intermediate check and got his rook to d8, and then got his rook to d2 to create chances for his own side, and that is how he won the game. So very good effort by Raunak Sadhwani. We will get to see him again in the finals. It's going to be exciting. I hope you liked my presentation of the game of the day, and I'll be back soon with another one. Until then, take care, subscribe to our channel. Bye bye.